I don't believe that one person should carry the load. I see it as there's a hierarchy. And if you're doing everything, I'm right here and the kids is here. No, we need to be equal. I don't ever try to keep up with the Jones or now keep up with the Kardashians, right? So I don't have those type of issues. And my personality is, if everyone's going left, I'm going right. For me, if it doesn't align with my goals, I'm not doing it. There's no such thing as the perfect person. That's the, purpose of marriage is to, each one teach one. Once you get the game, you can take and do with it as you choose, right? But just be smart, be calculated, and just know your risk level. Hey investors, welcome back to another episode of Corporate to Cash Flow with your host, Real Investor Jess. I'm here today with the champ himself, Sylvester Williams, aka Sly, aka my husband. Hey Sylvester, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Now, first I want to say I'm super excited to share this platform with you, and I'm excited to be on this journey with you as well. I guess I would say a little bit about myself. I was blessed to play in the NFL for almost a decade. I'm blessed to win the Super Bowl. I was a first-round draft pick in 2015. Played with a lot of great people. I learned a lot about life, a lot about business. I had my ups and downs throughout life, and, I'm sure we better get into some of that. And I think, just being able to see you thrive and be able to see you succeed in the way that you have has opened my eyes up to the possibilities that I could even reach myself and we can as a couple as well.
Nice. Well, thank you, babe. I appreciate that. So today I want us to talk a little bit about relationships, finances, real estate, just family and development, personal growth, the whole nine. So we're just going to really, this is not scripted. We're going to go into the bad, the good, the ugly, and everything in between.
Yeah, I think we should start off with our foundation. I think our foundation is our kids, right? We think about our kids, our boys, parents. I think talking about them because I think when you do things like invest in the future, right? I think one of the things you invest in is also their future, right? And so we got a very weird dynamic, given that we do have 4 children, 3 being on my side, 1 being on your side, and how we bring it all together. How do we prepare for their future? And we do that through real estate. One of our main financial outlets is real estate.
Yes, I totally agree with you. We are definitely focused on building a legacy, which I think is what makes our relationship so strong, is because we have that common goal and we both understand it and we live by it and we practice what we preach. One of the main things that keep us going when we're not there, right? We're just like everybody else, right? We have our ups, we have our downs, we have our days where we're tired, we have our days where I don't want to get a percentage and you have to come 100, or, we have our 50-50, we have our 70-30s. But just having that common goal and knowing what it will do for our legacy is definitely something that keeps keeps you chugging along when you just don't really have it in you.
And so I got a question for you, right? So we live in this world now where everybody push this narrative where a man should pay 100%, or, I'm not going 50-50. Right now, I guess the word that we live in now is that narrative is being pushed heavily. And how do you feel about that? And how do you feel about, I guess, contributing or maybe even using some of your money, or we using your one income to invest and another income to pay bills?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, my model, but obviously the audience that don't know, right? I don't believe that one person should carry the load, whatever that is. Because I look at everything like a resource. Money is a resource, okay? If I have resources and he has resources, then why are we not combining our resources, right? So nowadays, there's women that they don't want to pay a bill. And to each his own. I'm, nothing against those women out there that they see it as, I'm the prize, I shouldn't have to pay anything. But for myself personally, I make too much to not contribute. That would just be very selfish, right? And for those women that maybe they don't make as much, but if they're making nothing, then they contribute other ways, right? Because we know running a household and keeping up with kids is a lot, and that is a job in its own. But for those women even that are making a portion of what their husband make, because again, I'm not at your financial status I can't compete with someone who was in the NFL, right? When it comes to the monetary, but I do make a substantial amount where if I didn't contribute to our household, I didn't want to take what I make and go and invest that to contribute to our future, then that would just be very selfish of me. And I don't live life like that. I'm the type of person that I'm only going to treat you the way that I would want to be treated. And I wouldn't want you to do that to me. So why do I feel that it would be okay to do that to you, regardless of how much I make?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think one of the things that I think is very important, I think, is that, for me, I look at it from a standpoint of, because I hate that narrative, right? And I've been in situations where I've had to carry the load. And to be honest with you, regardless of how financially stable you are, it's stressful, right? Because you literally have another human being, right, that rely on you that's not your child, right? And sometimes, in my opinion, it could be a bit stressful on both sides, right? Because as a woman or as a man, you should want to have your own. You should want to be able to contribute so that it will always be ours, right? Versus mine's and I'm tagging you along, right? And so I look at it from the standpoint of like, instead of saying, okay, you could, because I think one of these that we do very well is that we invest in our future together, right? So we have a goal where it's like, we want to build this empire where neither one of us is paying bills, right? And this empire is what pays the bills. And we are aiming toward that goal and aiming towards, you being able to, have the freedom that you want, and live the life that you want. And I think that's important. I want you to talk a little bit about, our goals and how we are building an empire for our future to free both of us up.
Another great point. This is a relationship, this is a marriage, but at the end of the day, whenever you bring money into it, you have to operate like a business, right? So we have clear cut, I don't even call it instructions, right? But we have a very clear understanding of how we operate financially, right? My husband takes care of the majority of the bills, taking care of our mortgage. Again, I make a great amount, so I cover some bills. I make sure that we have everything. I still am the primary for running the household. And to run the household, it's like a supply chain. We gotta make sure we've got food, gotta make sure we've got our toiletries, right? Gotta make sure that everyone has what they need. So I make sure that the house stays stocked, but at the same time, I invest. My money, my earnings from my W-2 is primary to investment. And then extra things that we want to do, right? We like to vacation and have fun and stuff. And I don't ever want to be in a situation where I don't feel that I'm not contributing. That's just not the way that I am, and personally, the type of person I am, if I'm a dependent, I'm not an equal. I'm a dependent. Like, I just don't, I see it as there's a hierarchy and we're right here. Our kids is right here. If you're doing everything, I'm right here and the kids is here. No, we need to be equal.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, just to hit on that, I think just to go a little bit deeper is like, I think what make our relationship, so unique is that, while obviously, we live in a beautiful home now, we live a beautiful life, like we had to build up to this. Even from a standpoint, there was a point in time where, you owned the home and I moved in with you and we stayed there for a few years and that was a point in time where I was broke, right? And you was able to help me put back together the pieces and really get to a point where we are now, where we can aim towards that future. I think one of the things that always impressed me about you was how goal-driven you were, right? And how financially disciplined that you were, right? And I guess the question was, how do you stay financially disciplined in a world where Instagram and going out and just the world that we live in now is all about the flash, right? How do you stay financially disciplined and focus on your goals when there's so many distractions?
Well, it's quite easy for me because I'm a system-based person. So everything is a system for me. So when it comes to finances, right, I live by the model, pay yourself first. I read it somewhere or I seen it somewhere years ago, decades ago. I must have been under 18 in my teens, because when I got my first job at 16, I did the same thing. As soon as I got my paycheck, well, I always had a budget. I always budget, right? And then I went over how much can I save, how much do I need to cut in my bills, and how much can I play with, right? And then everything outside of that, I'm a giver. So I'm always gifting, and I like to do things for my friends and family. So I also believe in, give, you will receive, and material things, they don't mean anything. So in this world where Instagram and glamour and fame is such a, I guess it's priority for people nowadays. One, it's just not my personality. Like, obviously I like fashion. I love getting dressed and looking nice, but I do everything within my budget. I don't ever try to keep up with the Jones or now keep up with the Kardashians, right? So I don't have those type of issues. And my personality is, if everyone's going left, I'm going right. I'm sorry. I'm just I like to go against the grain, but it's usually logic behind it. And logically, I look at people, and I know some of these people that they have 100,000 followers and $1,000 in the bank, right? Or they're out every night partying and they're failing in their career. So you don't have to, one, you never have to tell me twice. Two, you definitely don't have to show me twice, right? So it's easy when, you just kind of put your goals first. For me, if it doesn't align with my goals, I'm not doing it, right? I have my list. Even when I was dating, right? I had a list of my negotiables, top 5 must have, like, he must hit these things. I guess bottom 5, he better not ever, right? And then everything else in between was negotiable, because that's just, with relationships, you're not going to get the perfect person. There's no such thing as the perfect person. You grow together, you learn together. But if you guys have those common goals and, there's nothing outside of what your morals and values are, then I think that's the, purpose of marriage, is to, each one teach one.
I guess one thing that impressed me about you is when I first met you, we really connected on real estate and investing and allowing real estate to be our future. And I remember what was so impressive about you is we went to dinner one day, we talked about real estate. I told you about, some houses I bought in the auction, and it was like literally, you was like, okay, when is the next one? And I remember, I told you when it was. I wasn't even in Missouri at the time. And you flew out there, got a hotel, had the money ready to go, and you went to the auction and bought a property. And I remember, I'm like, oh, that's dope. I was happy for you. And next thing you know, it was like, okay, the property was getting fixed up. And then you was like, put it on the market. Oh, I got an offer for the property already. And I remember the offer was like over $100,000. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I ain't never done that for real, and it's like, so I guess my question is, how did you have the confidence to be able to do that, right? And it's like, I think one of the impressive things about you is that you act fast, right? When you know something that you want, and I think you got a knack for identifying what's a good deal and what's a bad deal. And when you know it's a good deal, you act quick.
Well, thank you for being impressed by my quick call to action. But no, honestly, with myself, I am big on, I always it doesn't feel right. So I do a lot of tuition, right? My intuition. If it doesn't feel right, then I'm not going to do it. But obviously it's a calculated moves, right? And the numbers don't lie. I've always been a number person. I tell you this all the time. Like, I could look at a math problem and solve it in my head, right? So if it makes dollars, it makes sense. And just listening to you, because I wanted to do more flips. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. To buy a beat down shack in the back, you over $500,000, right? So when you introduced me to a new market, I was just like, cha-ching, right? And knowing that you were gonna be able to at least put me in contact with some of the people that you had there, because again, you weren't there, but you said, here, you can call my aunt. Here's a realtor. Here's some people. Do what you choose to do with it. I act fast. I'm a self-starter. I don't need anyone to, I don't follow the bandwagons, right? So you giving me the game, I'm the player, right? All you need is the game. And I try to tell this to people all the time. Once you get the game, you can take and do with it as you choose, right? But just be smart, be calculated, and just know your risk level. That's another thing, right? You telling me, okay, yeah, well, you could buy properties at the auction for 15,000, 5,000, 7,000, right? Obviously, I've done rehabs to know, okay, I probably got to put about 40,000 into this if it's a complete renovation. But there's those properties that you can get at the auctions where you can put a 10,000 in. Hey, you can rent it out. Obviously, you have to have putting different material in if you're doing a flip opposed to a buy and hold to cash flow for rent. Because again, you guys have seen some of my Instagram stories. You don't want to put the best quality into a rental unless you're doing a high-end rental, right? That'll get another conversation for a different day. What I try to tell my mentees all the time, because they're a little scared, I say, assess your risk. How much can you comfortably afford to lose? And the reason why I say it like this is because, one, I know in real estate, you're not going to lose if you play your cards right. But I walk into every deal that I'm doing, right? Every deal, and it's not even outside of real estate. Anything that I'm doing that requires me putting a large lump sum of money down that I could possibly lose. I walk into like I'm going to the casino. I'm already a loser, right? So if I win, which with real estate, there's no way to lose, really. But so many people are scared to get into it because they think that they're going to lose. Like, that's the truth. Everybody that I talk to, when I ask them, why haven't you started? And they're like, well, I just don't have the time. And, and I don't want to, I saved all this money. Like, these are people that they were in the same situation I was in. I was using my W-2 money. This is my life savings. My first deal was literally my life savings at that time in my life. I put into that deal, and I was confident because it's Los Angeles. Even if I didn't make over 100 grand off that deal, I knew I would have made at least 50, right? So you just kind of really have to weigh your odds. I live by this model of hope for the best, but expect the worst. And I think that's just what has gotten me through my career as a whole, got me through the military, got me through corporate America, and gotten me here with real estate and even within our relationship. You go into a relationship, you don't know what the outcome is going to be. How many couples get married? No one gets married thinking, oh, I'm probably going to get a divorce in 5 years, right? No one does that. So it's the same thing. It's an investment. We are investing our time into each other. We're investing our time into our life and our future.
No, I definitely think, I think one of the things about marriage is, like, I think you have to always be taking steps forward. Right? I think you have to always be chasing something. One of the things one of my coaches told me when I was playing is to never think about retirement, never think about settling. Like, always try to find ways to reinvent yourself, right? And that's always stuck with me. And that's why as you know me, I'm always on go, always seeing new ideas. But I want to go back to, again, that conversation that we had that led you to St. Louis. And because one of the things that really, again, that made me realize that you are just different as an individual, right? And I remember I got a call from my aunt. You had just got the property, and she called me, and she was like, Sylvester, who is this girl? She around here jumping in windows and to get into the house and all these things. And it's like, I want you to talk more about that, because I feel like it's so important. You was willing to get your hands dirty. You was willing to, not only because you had invested your money, because you had put forth the efforts, right? You wanted to make sure that you secured your investment, right? So you was down to St. Louis auction. You didn't have to keep. In the auction, sometimes you don't get to keep, right? So you had to jump through the window, right? Not knowing what was on the inside, and just not having that fear, right? And you're a very beautiful woman, and it's but being willing to get your hand dirty to secure your future. So I want you to talk more about that process, and really, what was your fear level during that process? What was your confidence level during that process? And really, all in all, how you felt throughout that process. Was it like a championship type process? I'm winning the championship of life right now because I'm investing in my future? Or was it kind of well, it's just the next step in the journey?
Well, I will say one thing about myself is that most of my accomplishments are always just a step, a milestone for my overall goals for my future, right? So, I think a lot of people tell me I don't celebrate enough. I don't celebrate myself enough. I don't Like I win in silence, right? You won't really know much about me and my success unless I'm having a conversation with you, and that becomes the topic. So I am a little bit more private. Even doing this was it was a little difficult for me to even be able to share my journey and share my life with the world, because I'm a private person, and I personally believe that your accomplishments will speak for themselves. You don't have to say much about it, right? As far as like being able to get my hands dirty, I've never been afraid to get my hands dirty. Being in the military for 12 years, I've lived in some of the worst conditions. But even before that, I grew up in South Central. I lived where roaches and rats and just in the slums. And unfortunately, you got to do what you got to do. For me, every day as a new beginning, every year is a new beginning, every chapter as a chance to do something different, something new. But I'm not afraid. I've never been an afraid person. My mom can tell you stories about how she just knew. She's like, I just always knew you were my strongest kid. One time our house had, we got robbed, right? And they came and they were literally like gunpoint, my mom was gone and it was us and the kids, and they put us all like in this room. And I think I told you the story where like my siblings and cousins, they were like scared. And I was like, what? No, we're kids. They're not going to kill us. So I was like, I'm jumping out the window. I jumped out the window and went to the neighbor's house and called the police. So they're just things like that where I just never really been like, the only thing I'm afraid of is God. I don't fear anything. And honestly, I don't fear death because, hey, this is hell on earth.
I think that's dope, because I think in life you gotta take risks, and I think the more successful people in the world are risk takers. And if you look on the journey of a Elon Musk or a Bill Gates, like these people have to take major risks in order to reach the level of success they reach. And I think in life sometimes people get too comfortable, right? They get too comfortable with where they're currently at in life. It's like, well, I don't want to. Somebody might have $10,000 in the bank, and they can go to auction route, and then like, what if I go to auction and if it don't work out, then what? Right, but I live with a mentality is like, but if you keep that $10,000 in the bank, then what? Right, so that you got $10,000 that turn into nothing. Like to me, it's like invested $10,000 into an auction properly and then turns into something else. And it's like, so for me, it's like that. Like again, I go back to that conversation because it taught me a lot about who you were as a person. Right now, you buying that property in St. Louis, which is known across the world as one of the most dangerous cities in the United States, right? And you had that confidence, say, you know what, I'm gonna go in this market and I'm gonna dominate, right? So I think so at the time people who have fear, because again, there are different strategies in real estate. You got the equity play and you got the cash flow play. And I think a lot of times we don't understand the two, because we own properties in Florida that don't cash flow as much as the ones that we own in Missouri or Mississippi. Those properties cash flow more because they are renters markets, right? But again, you was able to go into a renter's market and find a buy and flip, right? And so I think it's important for you to talk about, that auction journey, right? So talk about, the process, and talk about, maybe even how much you spent on the property, what you made off of it, and then I think really just go into like, because again, I want people to understand how realistic real estate investing is. Yeah. And I think so many times we get away from, I think so many times people they think it's scary, right? But you've never been afraid to invest in real estate. I've never been afraid to invest in real estate. And to be honest, it hadn't failed us yet. And I don't think it ever will.
Yeah, well, again, I think it goes back to some of these people, the ones in particular that are afraid is because they know how hard they worked for their money and they're afraid to lose it. The bottom line reason for why most people do not just invest is because they are afraid, right? There's also the ones that they feel that they don't have the time. But again, I could rule all these things out, and I'll give you the perfect example, right? Time-wise, I still have my full-time job. I work more than 40 hours a week. How do I manage the properties, right? I dedicate a couple of hours each day, whether it's the first half of the 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour after work. right? Sometimes it ends up being 2 hours before bed. Sometimes it's I'm eating and I'm multitasking, right? So being able to multitask is a skill set, and I've mastered that. There's a such thing called a property manager. I'm not managing 30 properties with a full-time job. It's just not happening, right? There's systems. I could put systems in place, but to be honest, so many random things come up when you have apartment buildings in particular. Single families are a little bit easier, I'll be honest. But this small multifamily space, probably one of the most difficult spaces. When I used to be in the Better Life tribe with Brandon Turner. When I met him and I told him what space I was in, he said, "Oh, that's the most difficult space." He said, "Wonder how that's going." He's like, "You got to be really tough because that is literally the toughest space to be in real estate." Right. But again, I have my models, and I definitely think that God gives his, toughest battles to the strongest warriors. So again, I'm not afraid. But the auction, again, it just made sense because I had just finished a deal that was over $100K renovation, right? So I went to the auction. I ended up getting the property for 13.6, right? So under 14,000. Paid the attorney 1,400 to get it cleared. I think it was about 35,000 into that property to get that property renovated. I remember it was under 50, and I'm going off the top of my head. There's been so many deals now, and it becomes a little difficult to remember the exact numbers without going back through. I have to keep track of everything. Okay, I've got everything written down. Finances, stay close to them. If you don't, they say a fool and his money should part ways soon. So make sure you pay attention to that. Don't be a fool, especially not with your money. But I want to say it was less than 52,000 all in. And, I like to make my properties aesthetically nice, right? If I'm doing a flip, then I'm definitely going to make sure that I put some not top quality, right? Because this is not if it was a flip in like our community, a nice neighborhood, then I would put top quality in there. So you got to know your market as well, right? You see where some people, they just overdo it. It's like, I don't care if you put 100 grand into it. You didn't increase that value by 100 grand because your neighbors, right? So pay attention to who your neighbors are. But that property, got an offer in the first day, right? All my properties always get offers in the first day on market. So knock on wood, I hope that continues. But I think it was 106 or 109 was the offer for that, right? And I knew, instantly, cha-ching, St. Louis is where the money is at. Because one thing that I absolutely love about St. Louis market is not only can you get properties for low rates, they have the tax deed sale, which is where you own that property as soon as you buy it, right? Once you got the winning bid and you go in there and you pay the sheriff's department, then that's your property. You can go in it that same day. And that's when I climbed through the window, by the way. I wasn't just climbing on people's properties, okay? So, but St. Louis has the rent rate to purchase price is outstanding. Rarely will you find, because even in Mississippi, it's a different market. Yes, you can buy properties for cheap in Mississippi, but the rent rates are still low. St. Louis has a very nice rent rate. That same property, if I were to rent that out, because remember I built 2 bedrooms in the basement, I always take advantage of the basement. That is a hidden gem there. It's almost like ADUs in California, right? So always use that space, create extra rooms down there, brighten it up, paint it. You can even paint what I love about basements, it's because people don't have like high expectations for it. So you can paint the concrete, right? You don't have to put flooring down there. But people love that additional space and always add a bathroom to the basement too. So that property would have rented for, right? That would have been a 4-bedroom by adding those 2 rooms into the basement. I could have rented that property for a minimum of $1,500, but we have a 3-bedroom now, and St. Louis is renting what for $12.50, and I didn't even finish the basement on that one yet. And I'll explain later why. But obviously, when you have so many projects going on, sometimes you have to prioritize. So I love that St. Louis is cheap to get in, and the rewards cash flow more than, any other location that we're in currently.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, because I think a lot of time people see, because we're out of town investors in 2 different states, right? We obviously own properties in Florida, but we are here locally, you know what I'm saying? And they're a little bit more upscale, so they're easy to manage. But being out of state investor, I think a lot of you would be afraid, because like, well, I wouldn't go to St. Louis or Ohio or Tennessee or Alabama, those surrounding cities in the Midwest that you to buy properties, your cash flow good. But I live in LA, or I live in Georgia, or, I just live in a different state. So it's like, how do I build the confidence to go into those markets? Because again, I think this where networking play a huge part at, right? It's like having that ability to go into these markets and say, you know what? Because again, I think one of the things that we do really well, or that you do really well, is you go to a city and be like, oh, I just met somebody at Home Depot. Oh, I just met somebody at the grocery store. And it's just like, but having that confidence, again, you have to be outgoing, and you got to take risks. I think so going in those markets and networking and finding partners and different things like that can be able to invest when you live out of state.
So yeah, definitely networking is the key to success here in real estate. You're not doing any of this stuff alone, right? You have to have your power team. I talk about the Lucky 7 and my workbook, which I just live by. But again, real estate is about relationship building, because I'm not doing the paperwork to buy the property. I'm not funding my own deal completely, right? So I have my realtor, I have my lender, right? I'm damn sure not going in there and ripping out toilets and pipes and stuff, right? So I have my contractor, right? I have my insurance broker. Okay. I have other investors that bring me deals, wholesalers, they are investors, right? They're actually great investors. You think about it, there's no risk tied to it for them. So that's a way to minimize your level of risk. But it's a team effort, right? You have your property manager. That's the 7th one there, right? You have your property manager who's going to take care of all of this for you while you are away. I think what people need to do is get out of their head with thinking that the burden is theirs. The burden is not yours. And if you've got this property is going to be cash flowing, it's going to pay for itself. It's going to pay everybody else. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I try to stress to my mentees is that, yes, an investment is just that. It is an investment. You have to invest something up front, whether it's time, money, energy. You're investing something for a return in the future. You're not going to get your full return right now, and unless you do something like the BRRRR strategy, which we'll talk about later as well. Absolutely love it. You'll get all your money back right away. So that's a nice strategy to use. But you got to look at real estate investing like planting a seed. You plant a seed, you water it, you come back, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, now you have this beautiful tree and you can pick fruit from it and it's going to feed you, right? So I think that's the biggest thing that people need to understand is that there's no such thing as a get rich quick scheme. Please stop getting scammed by people that you're paying to take your money, basically. Like you're paying to get scammed. So there's no such thing, and there's no such thing as, success without hard work. A lot of people, they think that they can cut corners. There's no cutting corners.
There's no success without risk either.
Yes.
And I think, what I think the beauty about real estate is deals are everywhere, right? I think, you getting your grandfather's deal, the tax sale, relationship bait. Like there's somebody right now that's in your circle of people that that's going through hardship right now, that's going through transition, maybe got some health issues that want to transition out of a property, that you can go in and help somebody out, because again, a lot of times what you did was help your grandfather out because he was going to lose the house anyway. So you was able to come in and say, hey, this a family, this a property that's been in the family for a while. I understand the value of it. I understand that you're going to lose the property. So let me come in and take over the property and allow it to create generational wealth for our family.
Yeah. Well, I want to make one correction. My grandfather came to me and asked me to buy his property. He wanted me to buy his property for a year. And I felt that I wasn't ready. So instead of buying his property for a year, I was just paying the difference on his mortgage from what he could afford. And then I spent that year actually educating myself on real estate investing. So I started off at education, right? I always say knowledge is power. I think, everyone has heard the saying, but I don't think people really understand how powerful it is to just be knowledgeable of a subject or in a field. And I educated myself first so I could be more comfortable. If I would have just bought my grandpa's house that moment when he asked me to, knowing that I didn't know what the hell I was doing, it would have been an epic failure, like epic, right? So always educate yourself first. But those opportunities, there's always opportunities out there, right? You made a good point that there's people that they are in need. They need someone to come in and help them out. They're not going to come to you unless they see you as someone that can help fix their problem, right? So there's a reason why my grandpa didn't go to any of my other family members, because he knew that he saw me as knowledgeable. He knew that I had the finances to do it. He trusted me. He trusted me to even share that he was going through this financial issue, right? So just making yourself available and being empathetic, right? It's hard for someone to ask for help if they think that you're going to judge them, right? And you made another point that's great, that I always try to meet people where they are. I told you the story about how, I met a lady on the plane and she just shared her whole life with me. And it's just making people feel comfortable, but doing it genuinely. So, again, I never forget where I came from. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Like when I go into these markets, when I'm looking for rental properties, I think back to, when I was 20, I would definitely have loved to live here, right? Or when I was growing up, this would have been a beautiful home, whether it is in South Central or St. Louis, Tampa, Jackson, Mississippi. Everybody deserves a nice place to live. And I know this just from experience, but I never forget where I came from.
And I think you said something that was key. I think because what I've noticed just over the years, people fall in love with you. And I think they fall in love with your authenticity. And it's like, we live in a world right now where there's so many so-called real estate gurus. There's so many people that can help you get rich quick in real estate, right? And I see a lot of this stuff online. It's like, man, but you never see the actual properties. You never see the actual work. Like, it's easy for somebody to come out and say, oh, I'm going to teach you how to become a millionaire in real estate in the next 365 days. Well, you can go to ChatGPT and they can give you that answer, right? But what I like about you is, and I think why people fall in love with you so much and why you already been able to gain traction is because you're actually, I like the term, in the field, right? And when you're actually in the field, the language that you speak is not black and white. It's not the, oh, hey, by the way, the birth strategy, buy, rent, rehab, refinance, right? This black and white strategy, which is an amazing strategy, right? But a lot of people throw that turn around as if it's easy, right? But we actively doing it. You're actively doing it. And I think that, that's what separates you apart from everybody else, because there is a lot of scam out there. There is a lot of fluff out there. And a lot of people don't understand what it really takes.
I think a lot of investors are coaches, whatever we want to call them. They, if they're teaching you how to use something, I would assume that they've done it before. So I'm going to say they're investors and coaches, right? they say that it's easy because they've done it multiple times. So to them, it is easy, right? Burr is easy to me. Was it easy when I first did it? Hey, depends on, who I'm having the conversation with, because overall, again, there's a lot of it is paperwork on my mind. I'm like a project manager. A lot of it's paperwork, put the money in, come up with the ideas, tell them everything that I want them to do, right? And yes, there is a lot of scamming going on. Because I don't believe that someone can teach you how to do something that they haven't done before, right? And I'm big on lead by example. So I definitely would never try to tell somebody to do something that I've never done. But the nice thing about real estate is that once you do your first purchase, you know how to buy a house now, right? Once you do your first renovation, you know how to do a renovation, right? So it really is a repeat, and build, stacked. And that's what I try to get everyone to understand, is that everything is going to be fearful the first time. It's the unknown, right? They always say the biggest fear is the unknown. But once you do your first deal, when I tell you it'll be smooth selling, you saw me, I just started taking off. Because that's how I also am. I'm big on speed, right? I obviously like to do things right, but I like to get them done quick. I don't like lingering things hanging around. Even when it comes to like planning our weekend, I'm like, what are we doing? You need to let me know, because I need to start planning my outfits, right? I just like everything to be bam, bam, bam. And that's because building a system. But I think this has all been great conversation. Sylvester, I appreciate you so much for coming on the show today. And we're definitely I think we didn't get to hit all our topics. So we're definitely going to do this again. Investors, I want you guys to stay tuned and follow me so you guys can catch the second part of this episode. We're going to have more conversations like this. I'm going to have more guests coming on my show, experts in private money lending, syndication, realtors, property managers, insurance brokers, my mentees, just you name it, they will be here. So just please follow along the journey. I promise you guys, you're going to learn some jewels here. If you got any questions or any topics you'd like me to cover, just please drop those in the comments. I promise you, I got y'all back. Again, when I tell you I don't forget where I came from, no question is a dumb question. The only dumb question is the one that is not asked. So please drop those questions. I will get them answered. Just bear with me. Y'all heard me. I got a full-time job still. I got a husband. I got a business. We'll start another business. We got kids. So I will try to push out content to get you guys questions answered as soon as I can. Just know that they will get answered. And if you would like to be a part of my program, just go ahead and DM me, and I would definitely get you in contact with the right people so we can get your journey to real estate started as well.